Alright, in order to solve this velocity problem, we are trying to find out when the front of this roller coaster passes this red line that's imprinted on the film. Now, I can use the slider bar in order to make really big movements, and so I'm going to try and get as close as I possibly can, but you'll see that I'm still pretty far and the slider bar doesn't help me that much. At this point, I'm going to use the comma button to move backwards and the period button to move forwards. These are on your keyboard. They're kind of on the bottom row. And so I'm going to use the period button to slowly advance the film one frame at a time, you'll see right here, until the beginning of the car just barely touches this line. And I see that that happens at frame 80. Now that's information that's going to help me soon. Now, I want also the back of this roller coaster when it passes this line, and so I'm going to grab the scroll bar here, and I'm going to make a really big movement in the film until the end of the roller coaster just barely makes it to that line, and then I'm going to use the decimal or the period button or the comma button to move forwards or backwards so that the very end of that train is passing the red line, 395 frames. I'm going to use this information to solve the rest of my problem. So if I take this information that I learned from the video, I can start trying to figure out what the velocity of the roller coaster is. I see that the roller coaster started at frame 80 and ended at frame 395. Well, if I take the difference between those, so 395 minus 80, I can find out how many frames went by as the roller coaster did, and that's 315 frames. The problem is frames doesn't help me that much. Frames is 1 unit, but in reality I want it to be in seconds. This sounds like a job for dimensional analysis. And if I look, it says 240 frames per second. I can write that as a ratio in my dimensional analysis to go from frames to seconds. And so I can use that information here. So I'm going to put 240 frames in 1 second. Now I do this, I choose this ratio so that eventually the term frames can cancel with the term frames, leaving me in the unit seconds. When I do that math, I find that it took the train 1.3125 seconds. And now I can put that in my givens. Whoops. Now that I know this, the film also told me that the train was 15.5 meters long. I'm looking for the velocity, and velocity equals distance divided by time. So I don't know what velocity is, but I do know that distance is 15.5 divided by, and it took 1.3125 seconds for it to pass that one particular point. When I do the math, I get a velocity of 11.8095, let's say 2 meters per second. But if we kind of clean that up and just make it an easy number to say, let's say 11.8, the 9's going to round the 1 up, 1 meters per second.